Good evening, class. Well, tonight we're going to pick up where we left off the other night. We'll start with the principles. Okay, we did 1 to 13, and now what I'd like to do is to pick up on number 14 to 26, which would be the end of the principles. I know they're quite exciting, but we'll have to get through them. Okay, principle number 14. Before we even go there, just as you guys were all signing off last night, I was reminded that I was sent a photo of a Fidal cover, and I want to go over it with everybody because some of you guys had already left by the time it was brought up. I meant to talk about it in class. Anyway, a Fidal. That's how you spell it. Now, last night I believe I brought it in like a show and tell, and what it looks like is a clean out. And it's shaped kind of like a wedge, about like that. Cover is up here, right? That's the cover. And the threads are lead. And the lead goes in about that far, all the way around. It's about that thick. You can't see this, of course, looking at it from the side, but if you look from above, you notice that this last bit here is all lead. Okay, now looking at it when it's installed, you can't tell. But if you have it in your hand, you can see the taper. And the reason for the taper is this. You have an old clean out, and the cover is missing. What you can do is get one of these Fidals, and the Fidal is designed to drop in, we'll say to about right about here, like that. Let's try another color. So the Fidal would drop right into the fitting itself. Okay, so the fitting would be here, and this would go in, and it would, the threads from the opening right here would cut right into the lead because the lead is so soft. Right now, if you ever use one, if you haven't used one, what I used to do, it's not something you do every day, is you push down with one hand and you put a pipe wrench on it, maybe a 14, I would say no bigger than an 18, and you try to catch a little bit. Now you're only going to get maybe a quarter of a turn. That's it. All you need is enough so that it's secure, that it won't pull out. Like so, when you pull it like with your hand, it shouldn't come out. So remember, the threads from this here, from the fitting, which I'm not drawing a very good picture of here, but if this was the fitting right here, right, the clean out, and it would come down like this. If this was cast iron, something like that. Okay, these threads here would groove right into the lead because the lead is so soft. Okay, it's very clever. I don't remember putting any pipe dope on it. I guess you could, wouldn't hurt. Okay, that's called a Fidal. If anybody has any comment or you've got your own experience, please bring it up when we do the question and answer period later. Okay, let's go back to the principles. Okay, principle number, let's see, number 14. I'm going to turn this light off. I don't know if maybe that helps. Okay, principle number 14, need for indirect waste piping. Now, indirect waste piping, we did the other night. Okay, we just happened to bump into it as one of the definitions. So as a review, I'm going to put it up here. Let me do it in the same order I did before. Okay, air break and air gap. Not something we talk about all the time, but it's out there. This one's the easy one. You do this all the time. This is the P-trap with the standpipe, 18 to 30. And this would be the clothes washer. Drop it into it. How far doesn't matter. We didn't talk about how far, but it goes in like that. And this would go down to the clothes washer. Okay? And like I told you, if you do hook it up, nice guy, you want to hook it up for the your elderly customer, be sure that this is hooked in there and it can't jump out when the water surges out of the washer. Okay? I could make a mess, and your good deed is going to go for nothing. In fact, you're going to get in trouble. So be sure you secure that somehow, if you hook it up. All right, that's an air brake. Another one was a tub spout. We did that also. A tub spout is that distance above tub flow level rim. Remember, that was 2 pipe diameters. So you got this is still in the air brake. So here's the wall. Here's the spout. We'll say that this is 1.5 inch diameter. Usually it's kind of a square shape unless it's a very old tub. And here's the top of the tub. So you'd have to have 2 pipe diameters like this, okay, to make it legal. I've never seen anybody mess that up. We all have our routine about putting these in, and we always stay at least 2 pipe diameters up. But that's another example of an air gap. I'm sorry. This is an example of an air gap. That's an air brake. Okay, so 2 of the most common ones that we run into out in the trade. One is an air gap. One is an air brake. An air brake means it's going into the drain like this. Okay, and this one here, it's actually even safer because it's above. It's above the rim of the tub itself. So there's no way the water's going to jump back in here. Okay, now one thing they mentioned here, and I don't know that I said this in class. It's the purpose of this is to prevent, for both of these indirect drains, prevent backflow. I think it was kind of suggested, implied, whatever, but I don't think I actually said it. Okay, if I didn't, there it is. It does spell it out here in the principles. Okay, that was number 14. Number 15, light and ventilation. No toilet, urinal, bathtub, or shower facility shall be installed into a new or renovated room, space, or compartment that does not incorporate proper illumination and mechanical exhaust. All right, usually we stay clear of this. We got plenty to do without getting involved in lighting and ventilation. Okay, I think I told one of the 2 groups, tier 1 and tier 2, that one time I did get involved because somebody forgot to do this, and I actually helped the electrician. We put in, we did it together. It was aluminum smoke pipe, which I had never used before, never seen before, for the part of the ventilation. But just be sure that it's taken care of. If you see somebody putting in a light with no ventilation, especially if there's no window in the bathroom, speak up. All right, the next one, number 16. They're a little vague here. It just says that all habitable buildings shall be provided with means of disposing of sewage. Okay, but they don't say an approved way to get rid of it. All right, so what's the options here? We got, I just realized the lighting is worse. Hold on. Yeah, it's a little better. Okay. All right. The main drain would be, obviously in a city, would be a sewer, right? You get out into the country, in suburbia, and some like Somerset have a sewer system. They didn't. I remember when they put that in back in, I believe it was in the 70s. A lot of work for us at the time. And so it can go either way. Like Somerset has it, Swansea does not. So the first choice would be a sewer. Second would be septic. Now, there are a few other options. One is a cesspool. Now, you've all heard the word a cesspool. It's used to apply to other things, like if something is very corrupt or whatever, it's called a cesspool. What is a cesspool? Cesspool is like an ancient septic system. It was a hole in the ground, lined with stone, almost like a well. It looks almost like a well, except it's not as deep. And it's wide. It's pretty wide. And a pipe comes into it, and the sewage goes right into that hole and leaches out through the stone into the surrounding soil. And ideally, it would just keep operating without backing up. I imagine, this was before my time, I imagine they had to pump them from time to time, or at least bucket it out, however they did it, to keep it operating. Right. And also, I imagine that soil must have got all blocked up. But that's a cesspool. Now, if you sell a house, I know this because I bought a house in Swansea 6 years ago, and when we bought it, the owner had to put in a new septic system. Even though the house was built in the 90s, it didn't qualify. It didn't meet today's current codes. I think it was Title 9, if I remember right. In any case, if you're selling a house, you might have about a $10,000, $20,000 surprise that you got to put a system in, and it's on the owner to do that, not the buyer. Okay, fine with us because we had the benefit of a brand new system. Okay, one last one, and somebody, I don't know if it was one of you two, tier 1, tier 2, but I was talking to somebody about a thing called a Clevis Motrum. And I'm going to mention that just for a minute. Now, I saw this when I was an inspector in Little Compton. It was because I did the building and the plumbing. And the Clevis Motrum is some Scandinavian design toilet. And you have the toilet up here like this. I'm doing this from memory, but something like that. And it goes into the floor. And then somehow it drops into this big tank like this in the basement. And there's a 4-inch vent that runs out the roof. You can sketch this if you want, but you don't have to. And I guess this would have to go up, obviously, the usual 18 to 24. And there's a fan on here. Right, so I'll just put a little motor over here, right? And we'll do a fan blade. Okay, and it actually the blade's going the wrong way. It should be going up, but you get the idea. So the way it works is there's ventilation 24 hours a day. And believe it or not, I don't know how much water flushes down here. It's little or none. And you would have a sink and a toilet. I'm not sure about the tub. I think it can tie into it, but it's like a compartment down here. And believe it or not, when you open the door to the access, it doesn't smell bad. You can actually use it like a fertilizer. Whoever was telling me about it told me the same thing that I was told and the instructions that I got, because somebody that used it had to get special permission from the state of Rhode Island to do this. And it was at the town library. So I was more of a bystander. Once I had the paper to cover me, it was very interesting to follow it. Somebody else actually owned the design. I wasn't responsible for it. And it was very interesting to watch. Like I said, it's been probably 30 years since I saw this thing. But I do remember the big container that it fell into. Now, the reason was because they couldn't get it to a septic tank. And out in Little Compton, of course, there's no sewers out there. So the state let them use this. Okay, it's the only one that I had heard of until in the last month or so. Somebody brought it up and told me pretty much the same thing I heard back then. Okay, it's called Clevis Motrum. Don't worry about it for a test, but if you ever hear the name, now you know what it is. It almost sounds impossible, but I think it's because of the ventilation 24 hours a day. It somehow ventilates it to the point where everything in here, it becomes kind of inoffensive, and it's almost just like compost. Okay, let's just leave it there and move on. But those are pretty much everything you're going to run into for the sewage disposal. Actually, there was one more. This was back in, I think it was about 1985, 86. I think I was inspecting. No, it might have been just before I was an inspector. I know it was in Tiverton. I'll take it back. It was in Tiverton. I had to get a permit. It was just as you go up the hill into Fogland. Those of you know your way around Little Compton. There's an old farmhouse on the left. and there was no bathroom. No bathroom at all. All I had was an outhouse, a two-seater out in the backyard. And the old people, I think the old lady was in her 80s, and she had a stroke or something, and she couldn't go outside anymore. So they actually built a wing on the house because there was no room for a bathroom, because the house just didn't have it. It just had the rooms as it was built with no excess space. So a modern bathroom was added onto the house, which was easy to pipe, of course, and to a septic system. But that was the only time I ever saw that. I am sure that if you get out the West, Midwest, West, there must be some isolated places where some people still have these things, but not around here. Okay, that was number 16. Number 17, prevent sewer flooding. Where a plumbing drainage system is subject to backflow of sewage. Now, this one's another one we just happened to have already talked about this year. But if it was a group that I didn't mention it to, I'll mention it one more time. The number 17 is you prevent the backflow of sewage from the public sewer system, not your septic system. Make a suitable provision shall be incorporated to prevent the potential of overflow into the building. Okay. What they're trying to say here, what they're saying, being a little bit vague, is that we have a backflow preventer. It keeps okay, whatever the building is, could be commercial, could be usually it's residential. Now, I didn't look it up for this class because it's not part of it's in here, but the backflow preventer, I believe usually the local inspector, he would be the one to listen to on this because he knows, like the plumbing inspector in each city and town, they know where the problem areas are. Like in Fall River, there's certain areas that flood. Plymouth Avenue, anywhere where it's low, where the water can build up. Stafford Square, out at that end of the city, and the inspector might ask you, when you're replacing the piping, just before you go out the wall, put a backflow preventer in. What is a backflow preventer? It's just a check valve. So what you'd have is a big 4-inch pipe with what looks like a dandy up here. I believe it has a cover, and inside it's got a flapper that comes down like this. It would swing up like that there when anything here tries to go by. So when the water tries to go out, it swings up. But if anything tries to come back this way like that, it stays down. Okay? Now, would it leak in slowly? It might, but it certainly is a lot better than 4-inch pipe letting sewage back into your house. So if you got a basement bathroom, it'd be just gushing out of that toilet. The house, my sister-in-law's house, had a 4-inch building drain going under the floor, not that deep in the floor because it was boards over, maybe 6 inches down at the high point, and the cleanout cover was gone. And I don't think I ever had been in that room. It was just a storage room. Anyway, without this cover, all the sewage, because it didn't have this, this really was a dandy. All the sewage came up. And for those of you who haven't seen it, especially you tier 1 guys, just picture a tide mark, except it's sewage that dried. And you can imagine what a mess that is. Nothing you want to deal with. Okay, so if you ever bump into a house that has a cover missing, fit all. All right? And if the inspector tells you he wants a backflow preventer, excuse me, it is a backflow preventer, but it's also called a backwater valve. Okay, this is the real name, sorry. This is what it does. Okay? It keeps the sewage from backing into the house, right? A backflow preventer. And it's a backwater valve. I've only seen it in 4-inch. Okay. Next one, number 18. Let's take a look at proper maintenance. Now, it doesn't mention it here, but if you flip a few pages, maybe 3 or 4 pages, it'll mention, I think it might be a little more than that. They get into maintenance of the plumbing system very early in the code book. And maintenance of the plumbing system is by the owner. Let me give you an example. You don't have to worry about this. Not you. He owns it, or she owns it. Now, this is a story. I don't know if it's true. Sounds good. There was a situation once where a plumber called for an inspection. Inspector showed up, and we'll say he was doing a water heater. Okay, the water heater was fine to code. Over there's a split in the stack. The inspector got on the plumber to fix whatever it was. I'm just making that up. And of course, it caused a commotion. And so now it's spelled out in the book. Again, this is probably before my time, that the maintenance of the building is not up to us. It is up to the owner of the property. Okay, you're there to do this. Now, here's my advice to you. If you work for somebody, you deal with them directly. You wouldn't deal with the customer, right? Other than a little small talk, or when you have to talk to them, like to find something. But when it comes to like the business end of it, like this, I wouldn't mention this to the owner. But if it is your job, even if it's Saturday morning, moonlight kind of thing, and you see something beside what you're doing over here that you were not contracted or you were not hired to do, tell them, do them a favor, especially if it's going to be an inspector coming onto the job. Because if you spotted it, he will or she will spot it, right? And then you're going to look like the bad guy when this water heater suddenly turns into another $500 for whatever problems over here because the inspector is on them about it. Okay, so what you could do is you get a job to do this and you see that, tell them, I'll do this, but you better take care of that because the inspector is going to see it and he's going to make you do it anyway. Okay, so just a little business tip. Okay, maintenance of the plumbing system, good enough. Fixtures shall be accessible. Okay, this one's kind of a no-brainer, but I guess you got to put everything in writing. You can't assume anything. Now, they're quite vague here. They don't give you any distances or anything. One of them you might want to remember is this. The only one I can think of is a water closet. Example, water closet, 30 inches, right? That's the minimum. You got a situation where you can't change that, remodeling. I'm thinking about some of the old mills where they got slate walls or something and you just can't change it. And you got 28 inches. Before you do anything, you better go check with the inspector and tell them, I'm just swapping out the toilets here. You got like half a dozen toilets. And my guess is if it's been there for 100 years, like these mills they're a lot older than that, probably say okay. But check first. Don't assume anything. So this is the minimum. So that'd be 15 on center. Okay, 15 on center. If you've got the room, you got plenty of room. My advice is to go 18 inches, and I suspect that most of you guys do that anyway. 18 inches from the center of the bowl to the wall, and then whatever's on the other side. If it's more than that, no big deal. I mean, you don't want to go any more than 18 anyway. You don't want people like having to reach 3 feet to get to the toilet paper on the wall. So 30 inches is by code. That would be the only measurement for accessibility that I can think of. Now, the other ones, let's say they're putting a bathtub in the eaves, with the ceiling that comes up. Kind of common sense. You don't want it where if you're standing in the tub, you have to, if you're taller than 5 feet, you're going to be hitting the ceiling. I've seen a few that were like borderline, Again, if you got a situation like that, take some exact measurements, run it by the inspector first. Okay, if he's okay, and the owner's all right with it, that's fine. All right, next one, number 20. And let me see how we're doing for time. Okay, we'll just start on this one here. Number 20, structural integrity. This reminds me of kind of like workmanship. They're very vague on this one. They really don't say. I mean, it shall not impact the structural integrity of building components. And they say, see Code of Mass Regulations, State Board of Building Regulations. Okay, so they're sending us over to the building code. All right, so actually they do give us a little bit of guidance here, and I have not seen that. But I think it was in Rhode Island. Anyway, we use 1/3. Now, I know I went over this last year, but you guys from Tier 1, listen up. What they're saying in that paragraph that's kind of vague is this. Let's say this is a 2x12, right? 12 inches high. Now, anybody here who's done any carpentry at all, you know that it's not 12 inches, right? That's nominal size, right? Nominal means in name only. All right, 100 some years ago, it might have been 12 inches. In fact, 2x4s really were 2x4s. I had an old house, so I know that. These days, it's like they're down to almost 11 inches, probably 11 and a quarter, 11 and an eighth. But for this illustration, work with me here, 12 inches. All right, where can I drill this beam? Okay, they're talking about structural integrity. What they're saying is you're going to start drilling. They didn't really say it, but I mean, they're implying that you're going to be altering it. You're not making it stronger. You're going to be drilling holes in it. They don't want it looking like Swiss cheese. So what you have to do, and by the way, it's 18 feet long. Another thing, a 2x12 goes 1.5 times this number here, the 12, 18. That's maxed out. A 2x4 can go 6 inches, 6 feet. You never see that. Maybe in a house trailer you see it. So a house trailer could actually have a 6-foot floor, like a walkway, hallway, and it could be a 2x4, but we never see that on the trade. Usually 2x10s, once in a while 2x12s. But in this case, it's going to be 18 feet long. So I'm maxing out my 2x12. And where can I drill it? We're going to say that it's supported right at the very end, right? Here's what you do. Divide it up into threes. So you get 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. The center's 6 feet. Forget it. Don't even think about it. Now, once in a while, I know you got to drill a couple of water lines, you got to do something. But the code says you can't drill in the center because obviously if you did an experiment and you push down on something, it's going to snap in the middle. Okay, now what about the sides? Well, they a little fussy. So this would be 12 inches high. So I got 4, 4, 4, right, inches high. Same thing over here. All right, so we got 4, 4, and 4. So the holes I draw have to be, in the middle, like this. Same thing over here. Okay. Now, I'm sure nobody here has ever drilled down here or up there, right? Just like you haven't drilled in the center. But this is what the code would like. Now, you got pipe that, other than water pipe, even water pipe is supposed to have pitch on it, but you're pitching 1/4 inch pitch, what, 4 inches? Just even 3-inch pipe is 3.5 on the outside. So this is what they like to see. Okay, that's the code on drilling holes. So keep it in mind, make a picture of it. Okay, I'm going to cut out here and pick it up in just a minute, and we'll go on, wrap up these principles.